This video is sponsored by the Kickstarter campaign for Dungeon X Tiles, a set of modular dungeon tiles for all your dungeon delving needs. I honestly wish that every tile set had larger spaces and actually held together when you moved it. It's good for hiding parts of the dungeon till adventures round the bend, and with simple textures it's really easy to paint or glue stuff to. Go check out the campaign, but also watch my video. You've seen goblins smack down a set of seasoned adventurers and how they lay down their sets of traps to serve different needs. But kobolds are quite a bit different. Let's quickly analyze their culture to understand how and why they fight. Much like goblins, kobolds know they're scrawny weaklings who can't win a one-on-one fight with a rat. I mean, neither can I, but that's not the point. The point is they're fully aware of their weaknesses, which makes them more dangerous than any insecure high schooler. As a result, they compensate for physical weakness with clever traps and organized tactics. But that's where their similarities end. Kobolds are sort of like borrowers. They hide beneath towns and cities, sneaking through the night and gathering up lost or broken goods to use down below. But they're greedy little dragon bastards and go out of their way to snag some loose gold or, I don't know, all your magic items. They don't pick fights and run away from any scraps outside of home, which keeps them safely under the radar. But three little vices cause adventurers to delve down and storm the tiny drake's home front. Firstly, they're tiny dragon thieves who want to gather a hoard. They snag gold cause it's shiny, fancy gems cause they're also shiny, and Hot Wheels in all your left socks. They grab magic items in hopes of using it to free their god, Kurt, because he was trapped by the gnome god Garl. This is their second vice, being fucking racist. They hate gnomes for what Carl did to Kurt and jump gnomes like a band of scrawny street thugs when given the chance. The third reason an adventurer would want to fight kobolds is their draconic worship. If an evil dragon is in the area, you can bet your juicy ass that the kobolds serve that dragon. In case you didn't read the video title or the thumbnail, this video is about fighting kobolds. So for one of the three reasons above, or if you're in a weird campaign where kobolds are warmongers who drive around giant cave networks like machines of war, you're taking the fight to them. As a little side note, kobolds will never take the fight to you unless you're exactly 3 gnomes around a campfire. This is where we lay out our combat. I'll detail why they have this layout and why they take certain actions during the whole shebang. This isn't just a combat map, this is their entire colony. The top left quarter is 2 sleeping chambers, lined thickly with sleeping mats. The eggs are kept here, warmed by a small fire. To the top right is a mushroom farm and a deep ravine. Down below is a large chamber that's being mined for ores. To the bottom left is a kiln and a crafting room, and the throne room, which is an altar to their god.
It's also where they keep all their treasure.
Gauging the population based on the size of the sleeping chamber, we'll say there are about 20 in this tribe. Which, when facing kobolds, matters very little. 4 of the little scaly bastards is as deadly as dealing with 100, because each one builds traps and runs away. With the populace and the map covered, it's time for traps. Starting with the sleeping quarter, let's think like kobolds. The number one tool they use to their advantage is their height and their weight. Every trap is triggered either by someone being too tall, too heavy, or manually by a kobold. The first thing we'll do is flood the deeper parts of tunnels with water or oil. Oil pools can be ignited. Muddy water can hide caltrops and bear traps, as well as hungry quippers. Moving into the sleeping chambers, we'll put a pair of net traps. When triggered by a heavier creature, these things pull the victim 60 feet up in a specially made chute, away from combat. Here's a quick kobold thought process.
All the wealth I have is jewelry I wear. An intruder would assume I kept it in a footlocker like some kind of idiot. I'm gonna make a footlocker and then fill it with, centipedes.
So we have a couple of those too. Lastly, in these rooms, we have entry tripwires set just above a kobold's head that triggers a volley of poison darts from the about-facing wall. Kobolds are great with bugs and rats, and most tribes have learned to extract poisons for traps or weapons. Moving over, we have a rickety bridge over a 120-foot deep ravine. Placed here is the defender known as Dave, a very stupid kobold stationed as a trap destined to die for his people. And because no one really liked him all that much. He's been given a bell and a ring of Thunderwave with 1 charge. If intruders enter, he is to ring the bell to lead them, cross the bridge that will break under heavier circumstances and beckon for the adventurers to follow, then launch them into the ravine. Down some walkways, we'll put weak pottery filled with spiders and deadly mold. In the mushroom farm, I'll put nothing but a visible rope near a shut exit door. Kobolds, like dwarves, can tell how sturdy a stone is just by looking at it, so their homes look shabby, but it's on purpose. Anyway, pulling this rope causes two things to happen. First, the stone it rests in breaks, and the walls to the chamber cave inward, as well as the cave itself. Second, at the far end of the rope in a box on the surface, reveals an embarrassing photo of SpongeBob at the Christmas party. Down here, we'll add a collapsing dead end, and all the overlapping tunnels are riddled with murder holes for kobolds to attack from above or below. Put more spiders over here, another oil basin, and a pit trap for good measure. Guarding the entries of the mine is a lazy pair of giant rats. I'll prep a giant rolling boulder from this dead end below, and put some hanging crates full of spiders and centipedes. For the last quarter, we'll add some classic collapsing tunnels and another muddy puddle. In the crafting room, near the kiln, boiling bubbles of oil and water soak in its heat, ready to be spilled. With the exhaust vent from the kiln being the closest thing to give away the tribe, they lace this chamber with alarm bells and dig below the soft earth here to place toxic spikes. Finally, in the throne room, we put all the treasure, a bulk of jewelry and magic items offered to their god, and deadfall support beams blocking each and every entry. A kobold can slide right under it, a giant paladin cannot. Well, that's about as clever as I can get, but given a few hours, I'd rig the place to blow and add some more nets. After following the party druid, a team of adventurers looking to recover their stolen wand of fireball and plethora of gold roll up to the scene. Here's a quick breakdown of the 4 souls. A level 6 elven druid, a level 5 human fighter, a level 5 gnome sorcerer, and a level 6 half-orc cleric. Pretty fair and diverse. Alright, that took exactly twice the amount of time to explain than the goblin bit did, but in any case, on to the encounter. It begins after the druid tracks down their lair, and enters via an uncovered escape tunnel. Cautiously entering, bow ready, he spots this totally not goblin focused on crafting. With a magic message sent off to his bros, he knocks an arrow and starts the surprise round. An arrow flies, and anyone level 6 or higher should do more than 5 damage, so the kobold dies. The gnome follows up, racing between the elf's legs and launching an acid splash the kiln worker barely avoids. This kobold gets a chance to react at the top of round 1, making a note of the gnome before racing off to alert the tribe. On the way, he collapses his tunnel. The human fighter holds his turn until the damn elf moves out of the doorway. Lucky for him, the druid's turn drops and he pushes into the room to kill the last little boy. Piece of cake. However, this entry sets off the bells and alarms, well, who knows? The fighter steps in and moves toward the only remaining tunnel. Passing under a few murder holes, he gets bombarded by boiling oil and a set of arrows. With a pained yell, both the party and more kobolds are alerted to the issue at hand. In the room ahead, eggs are gathered and rush toward the nearest escape holes. The wizard is up and races past the fighter to eye the next chamber. As she passes under the murder holes, a pair of flaming arrows target her and ignite the poor fighter. In the next chamber, he sees 4 kobolds racing out with baskets full of eggs. Amplified magic missiles fly into the room from his fingers, downing 2 carriers and injuring another. The survivors continue their escape, shouting racial slurs and making aware the gnome's location. Other kobolds race into the room with bows and spears, riddling the wizard for solid damage and then dashing back out. The half-orc that you completely forgot about barely enters the scene, and heals the fighter a bit. Infuriated and on fire, the fighter storms into the next room, accidentally triggering more traps. Firstly, he trips the wire and earns more damage from poison needles, not just for himself, but also for our poor gnome. Then he steps into the net, flying up 60 feet and igniting the rope. The gnome, pulling a spear out of her tiny chest, steps into the room and waits for the cleric to follow. Also, the druid kinda has to wait too, cause the orc is thick. They both get taxed by the still active murder hole, and finally group up. They heal up and prep for the next round. The fighter, burning through the net, then falls 60 feet, and unconscious. A pair of kobolds run back in, target the gnome because they're still racist, and then run away. Some good old slow healing magic from the half-orc brings them back from the brink. The half-orc's luck runs out in this chamber, as every other tunnel is much too small for their giant body. Dave's bell rings down the hall, beckoning the party forward. Half mortalized, our merry band lets the druids scout ahead and prep their actions to take out skittering kobolds. The elf moves forward, accidentally downing the gnome again with darts, spotting Dave and firing an arrow. Back at home base, the party cautiously peers down silent halls, devoid of kobolds. For now. The cleric's spell slots run even lower as the gnome returns, and the pair decide that the druid can handle themselves. They duck under the tripwire and wade through some oil. The druid is smart enough to cross the bridge as a lightweight snake, making their way to the crossroads and reverting their form. Our beloved dunce twins reach some pots, and everyone opens their presents at the same time. A pair of brief fights and a couple of con saves leaves our fighter well under the weather, and the lucky-ass druid takes his first real nick of damage. Tracking the escape route, the fighter sees footprints behind this door. While the halfling gathers mushrooms for potion ingredients, the fighter's final mistake leaves them both in a very heavy grave. I got this rock after a 20-minute walk to the park because my car doesn't work. Anyway, this perfectly timed boom of a structure caving in distracts the kobolds waiting above the druid long enough for him to pass by a murder hole unharmed. After wading through some more oil and carefully passing more spider pots, they enter the mine. Here we have 3 kobolds ready to drop some spiders and our rat friends. Dominating initiative, the druid acts first and turns into a bear. Luckily for the druid, bears scare the shit out of kobolds. When you live in caves hiding from predators, the one cave-dwelling predator is a common fear. He smacks the rat dead and eats the kobold whole, scaring the shit out of the other combatants. Those still alive run for their lives, ending combat for our druid. After scoping the scene, he trades forms to continue his search. At this point, unbeknownst to the remaining adventurers, there are no more kobolds in this lair. Our triumphant failure of an exterminator carefully enters the treasure room, just barely avoiding the support beams. Gathering their lost treasures, this hero walks back to— oh, wait, no, he's dead. As a closing note, I know this encounter works mostly based on probabilities or assumptions. If you want to clone the encounter for your game, just do it, see how it turns out. If you learned a thing about kobolds, here's another one. They all work together. They're more organized than goblins, and each one has a task to do. Aside from employing traps and pets, working together makes you more of a threat, which means communism is the one true way. Now you've really learned something.